What happens when a feel-good interview suddenly turns into an uncomfortable, live TV confrontation no one saw coming? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. Joy leans forward at the table, smiling the way she does when she thinks the audience is fully on her side. So we're really happy to have Chris Evans with us today. Actor, producer, activist, she gestures toward him. And apparently America's favorite nice guy. The audience laughs and applauds. Chris smiles politely, gives a small wave, clearly relaxed but alert, sitting upright with his hands loosely clasped. Whoopi nods. You've had a busy year. New projects, some time away from the spotlight, and a lot of conversations around what celebrities owe the public. Chris chuckles softly. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Sunny leans in slightly, her tone calm but deliberate. Chris, you've been very vocal in the past about political responsibility, social issues, encouraging people to speak up. But recently, you've also said you're stepping back from certain conversations. Some people felt disappointed. A few murmurs ripple through the audience. Chris tilts his head. Disappointed how? Sunny doesn't miss a beat. Well, they feel like when it gets uncomfortable, when the criticism comes, you retreat. That maybe the advocacy only lasts as long as it's convenient. The room shifts. Joy glances at Sunny, then back at Chris. Whoopi raises her eyebrows slightly but stays quiet. Chris exhales through his nose, still calm. I don't think that's fair, honestly. Sunny smiles thinly. But that's how it's perceived. And perception matters, especially when you've positioned yourself as someone who wants to lead these conversations. A few audience members clap lightly. Others stay silent. Chris straightens in his chair. I've never said I want to lead anything. I've said I want to participate. Those are two very different things. Joy jumps in quickly. But you understand why people would expect more from you, right? You've used your platform. Chris nods. Of course. And I still do. Just not always in the way people want or demand. Sunny tilts her head. But isn't that the point of having a platform? That it comes with responsibility, whether it's comfortable or not. The audience murmurs again, louder this time. Chris pauses, choosing his words. Responsibility doesn't mean obligation to perform outrage on command. There's a beat. A few gasps. Whoopi lets out a low Sunny's smile fades slightly. No one said perform outrage. But when marginalized communities are speaking, silence can feel like abandonment. Chris looks directly at her now. And when people assume silence without asking what's actually happening behind the scenes, that can feel like erasure of effort. Joy interjects, half joking. Okay, this got serious fast. Laughter breaks some tension, but not all of it. Sunny keeps her eyes on Chris. Are you saying people are wrong to expect consistency from you? Chris shakes his head. I'm saying people are wrong to assume inconsistency just because I'm not posting every thought online. The audience claps louder this time. Sunny crosses her arms loosely. But Chris, she says, you benefited from being seen as one of the good ones. You can't deny that image helped your career. That lands heavier. The audience goes quiet. Chris blinks, then lets out a short laugh, not amused. I didn't create that label. Sunny raises an eyebrow. But you accepted it. Chris leans forward slightly now. I accepted being treated like a human being. I didn't sign a contract to be anyone's moral mascot. A sharp intake of breath comes from somewhere in the audience. Whoopi finally steps in. Hold on. Let's slow this down a little. Joy nods. Yeah, because I think what Sunny's saying is. Sunny cuts in. What I'm saying is that when someone with your influence pulls back, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Chris's jaw tightens. And what I'm saying is that assuming pulling back equals not caring is exactly the problem. The audience reacts, some clapping, some murmuring disagreement. Sunny's tone sharpens just a touch. So you're saying the criticism is unfair. Chris doesn't hesitate. Yes, in many cases it is. Joy's eyes widen. Wow. Sunny lets out a short breath. Chris, accountability isn't criticism. It's part of the conversation you chose to enter. Chris's voice stays steady, but there's a noticeable edge now. And accountability isn't public punishment. It's dialogue. What's happening right now feels more like a trial. The audience reacts audibly. Someone claps loudly. Another person says, wow, under their breath. Whoopi looks between them. Okay, I'm going to say this. This feels personal now. Sunny nods. Because it is personal for people who feel let down. Chris's expression changes. The smile is completely gone now. You keep saying people. but you're speaking for them without asking if that's what they want. Sunny stiffens. I talk to these communities every day. Chris leans back slightly, then forward again. And so do I. Just not always with cameras on. That's when the tension really spikes. The audience reacts strongly, clapping, murmurs, a few scattered cheers. Joy laughs nervously. All right, we're going to need a commercial at this rate. Sunny's eyes stay locked on Chris. Are you implying that this show is performative? Chris pauses. The room feels like it's holding its breath. I'm implying, he says slowly, that sometimes conversations become about optics instead of impact. A collective, oh, ripples through the crowd. Whoopi puts a hand up. Okay, let's breathe. Sunny shakes her head slightly. That's a convenient way to dismiss hard questions. Chris's voice tightens. No, it's a way to demand nuance. Joy jumps in fast. But nuance doesn't always translate when people are hurting. Chris turns to Joy. Neither does simplification. The audience claps again, louder this time, but there are audible groans mixed in. Sunny leans back, clearly frustrated. So what would you have people do? Just trust that you're doing the work. Chris meets her gaze. Yes, or at least stop assuming bad faith when they don't see everything. There's a long pause. Cameras would be cutting between faces if this were live. Whoopi breaks it. We're going to take a quick break. The audience buzzes, talking over one another as the tension hangs thick in the air, and Chris sits back in his chair, arms crossed now. Not defensive, but no longer playing nice. The audience is still buzzing as the show comes back from break. You can hear scattered claps, a few nervous laughs, people whispering to each other. The camera settles back on the table. Chris uncrosses his arms slowly, adjusts slightly in his chair. Sunny takes a sip of water, her expression composed but tight. Joy exhales like she's bracing herself. Whoopi looks straight ahead, already ready to intervene if needed. Joy forces a smile. All right, we're back. Clearly, this conversation struck a nerve. A few audience members clap, others stay quiet. Whoopi nods. And look, this is what this table is for. We don't always agree. Sunny turns slightly toward Chris. I want to be clear. I'm not questioning whether you care. I'm questioning impact. Chris nods once. And I hear that. I really do. Sunny presses on. Because when someone with your reach changes how vocal they are, people notice. Especially people who felt supported by you before. Chris keeps his voice even. I didn't stop caring. I stopped reacting. Joy leans in. But sometimes reaction is reassurance. Chris glances at her. Sometimes reaction is noise. A low murmur rolls through the audience. Sunny tilts her head. So people who are asking you to speak up are just noise. Chris shakes his head immediately. No, I'm saying the pressure to constantly perform awareness can drown out real work. Sunny's eyebrows lift. But who decides what real work looks like? Chris pauses. The people doing it. Sunny lets out a short laugh, not amused. And you're one of them? Chris meets her eyes. Yes. That lands hard. A few people clap. Others groan. Whoopi jumps in. Okay, hold on. Let's unpack that without biting each other's heads off. Joy nods quickly. Yes, please. Sunny folds her hands. Chris, you've said before you don't want to be anyone's hero. But you benefited from people seeing you as safe, trustworthy, morally aligned. That comes with expectations. Chris's jaw tightens slightly. Expectations I never agreed to. Sunny's tone sharpens. But you didn't reject them either. Chris leans forward now, elbows lightly on the table. Because rejecting them publicly would have been seen as arrogance. And accepting them quietly is now being framed as obligation. The audience reacts, some clapping, some murmuring. Joy lets out a breath. This is getting philosophical. Sunny doesn't smile. It's getting real. Chris nods. Exactly. There's a beat where no one speaks. Whoopi looks between them. Sunny, Whoopi says carefully, what would accountability look like to you specifically? Sunny doesn't hesitate. Consistency. When things get hard, you don't disappear. Chris's eyes flash. I didn't disappear. Sunny counters immediately. You step back. Chris's voice rises just slightly. From social media. Not from action. The audience murmurs louder. Joy interjects. But people don't see that action. Chris turns to her. And that's the problem with visibility culture. Sunny shakes her head. Visibility is how people feel less alone. Chris responds quickly now. And it's also how people burn out, get misinterpreted, and get attacked for not saying the exact right thing at the exact right time. A few gasps. Applause breaks out in pockets. Sunny leans forward. That sounds like fear. Chris stiffens. No, that sounds like boundaries. The audience reacts loudly, claps, murmurs a few ums. Whoopi raises her voice. Okay. Let's bring it down a notch. Sunny looks directly at Chris. Boundaries are valid. But so is disappointment. Chris nods slowly. I'm not denying that. Sunny presses. Then why does it feel like you're dismissing it? Chris takes a breath. Because it feels like disappointment is being weaponized. The audience audibly reacts. Someone says wow out loud. Joy's eyes widen. Weaponized. Chris keeps going. Yes. Like if I don't show up exactly how people want, I'm suddenly suspect. Sunny shakes her head. That's not what I'm saying. Chris responds, sharper now. It's how it's being framed. Sunny's voice tightens. So now this is about framing, not responsibility. Chris snaps back. It's always about framing. There's a clear shift now. His patience is thinning. Whoopi cuts in firmly. Chris. He stops, looks at her. Watch your tone, Whoopi says calmly. Chris nods. Fair. Sunny exhales. Look, nobody's asking you to bleed on camera. Chris responds instantly. Sometimes it feels like they are. The audience reacts again, louder this time. Joy nervously laughs. Okay, I think we've officially crossed into uncomfortable. Sunny turns slightly toward Joy. Discomfort isn't a bad thing. Chris adds, neither is disagreement. Sunny looks back at him. Then don't act like you're being attacked. Chris's eyes harden. I'm reacting to how this conversation started. Sunny bristles. With a question. Chris leans in, voice firm now. With an accusation. The audience gasps. Whoopi sits up straighter. Sunny's eyes widen. That's your interpretation. Chris doesn't back down. Words matter. Joy jumps in fast. Okay, let's slow it down. Sunny keeps her gaze on Chris. Chris, do you understand why some people feel you talk about nuance when it benefits you? Chris's voice tightens further. That's unfair. Sunny replies immediately. Why? Chris's restraint cracks just a bit. Because nuance isn't a shield. It's reality. The audience erupts, applause mixed with murmurs. Whoopi raises her hand again. Hold it. Chris exhales, leans back slightly, rubbing his hands together once. Sunny speaks again, quieter but intense. When you tell people to trust you without transparency, it sounds like privilege. That does it. Chris leans forward sharply. No, don't do that. The room goes silent. Sunny blinks. Do what? Chris's voice is controlled but unmistakably heated. Reduce boundaries to privilege. The audience reacts loudly. Gasps, claps, scattered shouts. Whoopi says firmly, Chris. Chris cuts in, not yelling but clearly snapping. I've listened. I've engaged. But I'm not going to accept being told that protecting my mental health equals moral failure. Dead silence for a beat. Then the audience erupts. Applause, murmurs, people talking over each other. Sunny sits back, stunned for a moment. Joy's mouth is slightly open. Whoopi nods slowly. Okay, that needed to be said. Sunny recovers, but her voice is tight. No one said moral failure. Chris responds immediately. That's how it lands. Joy jumps in. This feels like two different conversations happening at once. Sunny turns to Joy. Because he's personalizing it. Chris fires back. Because you're generalizing it. The tension is thick now. Everyone feels it. Whoopi looks straight into the camera. We're going to take another break. The audience buzzes even louder than before as the screen would fade, and Chris sits back again, jaw clenched, eyes forward. The friendly guest persona completely gone now. The audience is louder when the show comes back this time. A mix of applause, uneasy laughter, and side conversations that haven't fully died down. Someone whistles. Someone else shushes them. The camera settles, and you can feel that everyone at the table knows they're walking back into something raw. Whoopi speaks first, firm and grounding. All right, we're back. Let's reset just a little. Chris nods, lips pressed together. Sunny adjusts in her seat, visibly steadying herself. Joy looks between them, half smiling like she's trying to keep the peace. Whoopi continues. This conversation matters. But we're not going to talk over each other. A few audience members clap. Sunny takes a breath. I want to say something clearly, because I don't want this misunderstood. Chris looks at her, cautious but listening. I am not questioning your mental health, Sunny says. And I am not saying boundaries are a moral failure. Chris nods once. Okay, Sunny continues. What I'm saying is that when someone publicly steps into advocacy, the relationship with the audience changes. People feel invested. Chris responds calmly, but there's still tension under it. I understand investment. I don't understand ownership. The audience murmurs. Joy jumps in. That's a big distinction. Sunny turns toward Joy. But investment comes with expectations. Chris replies immediately. And expectations can become entitlement. The audience reacts strongly, clapping, a few groans. Whoopi lifts her hand again. All right, let's let that land. Sunny keeps her voice even. Chris, can you see how some people might hear what you're saying as you wanting credit without scrutiny? Chris shakes his head slowly. No, I want conversation without assumption. Sunny leans forward. Then answer this directly. When you choose not to speak publicly during a major moment, do you understand how that silence reads? Chris pauses longer this time. He nods slightly. Yes. Sunny presses. And Chris exhales. And I think it's unfair to equate silence with indifference. Sunny counters. But you know that's how it feels to some. Chris's voice tightens again. Feelings aren't facts. A loud reaction from the audience. Whoopi's eyes widen slightly. Sunny's expression hardens. Feelings inform reality. Chris responds instantly. They don't define intent. Joy cuts in. Okay, before we spiral. Sunny looks back at Chris. Intent doesn't erase impact. Chris leans forward, hands open now. And impact doesn't automatically mean wrongdoing. The back and forth is quick now, sharper. Sunny. So there's no responsibility to address the impact? Chris. There is responsibility. Not obligation to perform. Sunny. You keep saying perform. Chris. Because that's what this pressure turns into. The audience is audibly split. Applause from one side, murmurs from another. Whoopi raises her voice. All right, stop. They both pause. Whoopi looks at Chris. You're frustrated. Chris nods. Yes. Whoopi looks at Sunny. You're pushing. Sunny nods. Yes. Whoopi leans back. That's the show. A ripple of laughter breaks some tension. Joy adds, this is why people watch. Chris lets out a short breath, almost a laugh, but it doesn't fully land. Sunny speaks again, softer now. Chris, do you trust your audience? Chris looks at her. I trust people. I don't trust mobs. A few gasps. Applause follows immediately. Sunny lifts her chin. That sounds dismissive. Chris shakes his head. It's realistic. Sunny responds. So accountability feels like a mob to you? Chris answers without hesitation. Public outrage often is. The audience reacts strongly again. Joy interjects. But without public pressure, things don't change. Chris turns to her. And with only public pressure, nuance disappears. Sunny looks at him. You benefit from that nuance. Chris snaps back, sharper now. Everyone deserves nuance. That lands hard. The audience claps loudly. Sunny exhales, clearly frustrated. You're talking in absolutes now. Chris fires back. So are you. There's a brief, awkward silence. Whoopi breaks it. Let me ask something. Everyone looks at her. Chris, do you regret ever speaking out in the first place? Chris blinks. No. Sunny raises an eyebrow. Then why does this feel like resentment? Chris's voice drops, steady but intense. Because the conversation shifted from encouragement to enforcement. The audience murmurs. Joy nods slowly. That's interesting. Sunny responds quickly. But enforcement exists because harm exists. Chris replies, and enforcement without context creates new harm. The tension is palpable now. Chris's tone is no longer just defensive. It's firm, controlled, but clearly at the edge. Sunny leans back. So what's the solution? Chris doesn't hesitate. Stop assuming the worst. Sunny counters. And start assuming the best? Chris replies. Start asking questions before passing judgment. Sunny's voice tightens again. That's what I'm doing. Chris shakes his head. No. You're telling me how people feel and asking me to justify it. The audience reacts. Oohs, clapping murmurs. Joy winces. Okay, that's spicy. Sunny's expression is now openly annoyed. You're getting defensive. Chris's restraint finally cracks. Not yelling, but unmistakably snapping. Because I am being accused. The room goes quiet. Sunny responds sharply. Of what? Chris looks her straight in the eye. Of caring only when it's convenient. That lands like a punch. The audience gasps loudly. Sunny opens her mouth, then closes it. Joy looks stunned. Whoopi watches closely. Sunny finally speaks. That is not what I said. Chris doesn't look away. It's what was implied. Sunny's voice rises. That's your interpretation. Chris fires back immediately. An interpretation is shaped by tone. The audience reacts again, louder than before. Whoopi stands slightly from her chair. All right, enough. Everyone freezes. Whoopi looks at both of them. This is no longer productive. Chris leans back, jaw tight, breathing measured. Sunny folds her arms. I disagree. Whoopi looks at her. I know you do. Joy tries to lighten it. Well, at least we're honest. A few nervous laughs. Chris speaks again, quieter but intense. I didn't come here to fight. Sunny responds just as quietly. Neither did I. They lock eyes for a moment. The tension is heavy, unresolved. Whoopi turns to the camera. We're going to take one last break. The audience buzzes, louder than ever, as cameras would fade out, leaving the sense that whatever happens next will decide how this moment is remembered. The audience comes back buzzing louder than at any point so far. People are clapping before anyone even speaks. A few stand briefly, then sit back down when the cameras settle. You can feel that everyone knows this is the final stretch, and whatever gets said now is what people will remember. Whoopi looks straight ahead, calm but serious. All right, we're back for the last time. Chris sits still, hands folded now, shoulders squared. Sunny adjusts her posture, composed again but visibly guarded. Joy exhales softly, like she's relieved and nervous at the same time. Whoopi speaks first. I want to reset us, because this conversation went somewhere intense. The audience murmurs in agreement. This isn't about winning, Whoopi continues. It's about understanding where the disconnect is. Chris nods slightly. Sunny does too, though more stiffly. Sunny speaks first this time. Chris, I want to say something before we move forward. Chris looks at her. Okay. Sunny's tone is measured. I don't believe you don't care. And I don't think you're malicious. What I reacted to was the sense that public accountability is being dismissed as unfair pressure. Chris listens, jaw tight but steady. And for people watching, Sunny adds, glancing briefly toward the audience, that can feel invalidating. Chris nods once. I hear that. Joy jumps in softly. And that's important. Chris then speaks, slower now, calmer than before. What I've been trying to say, maybe not perfectly, is that I don't think accountability should require constant visibility. Sunny responds carefully. And I don't think visibility should automatically be framed as performance. Chris looks at her. That's fair. There's a small but noticeable shift in the room. The audience claps lightly. Whoopi nods. That right there. That's the conversation. Joy smiles, relieved. See? We're landing the plane. A few laughs ripple through the crowd. Sunny leans forward slightly. Chris, would you be willing to say that you understand why people felt disappointed, even if you disagree with the framing? Chris pauses, then nods. Yes, I understand it. The audience applauds louder this time. And, Chris continues, I'd ask people to understand that silence doesn't always mean absence. Sunny nods slowly. That's a fair ask. Joy looks genuinely surprised. Wow, growth on daytime television. Laughter breaks out, easing the tension. Whoopi smiles. It happens. Chris lets out a breath, shoulders finally relaxing just a bit. Look, I don't regret speaking up in the past. I also don't regret stepping back when I needed to. Sunny responds. And I don't regret asking hard questions. Chris gives a small nod. I wouldn't expect you to. There's a moment of quiet that feels earned rather than awkward. Whoopi looks out at the audience. This is messy. Real conversations are. The audience applauds in agreement. Joy adds, and if nothing else, people at home are definitely talking right now. Sunny glances toward Chris again. I hope you know this wasn't personal. Chris meets her gaze. It felt personal in the moment, but I get that it wasn't meant that way. Sunny nods. Fair. Another round of applause. Whoopi shifts slightly in her chair. All right, we're almost out of time. Groans from the audience. I know, Whoopi says, smiling. But before we wrap, Chris, final thought? Chris looks thoughtful. I'd just say, ask questions before assigning intent, and leave room for people to grow without punishing them for not being perfect. The audience claps loudly. Sunny adds, and I'd say, don't underestimate how much your voice matters to people who feel unheard. Chris nods. Point taken. Joy looks into the camera. Well, that just happened. The audience laughs and applauds again. Whoopi closes. This is why we do this show. The cameras pull back as the applause continues, But even as the segment ends, the energy doesn't drop. People are still talking to each other, pointing at the table, shaking their heads, smiling, arguing quietly. And after the show, the moment doesn't fade, it explodes. Within minutes, clips hit social media. One headline reads, Chris Evans pushes back on Sunny Hostin in heated exchange. Another says, viewers divided after tense daytime TV moment. On X, one clip racks up millions of views in hours. Some users praise Chris for setting boundaries and standing his ground. Others criticize him for being defensive and missing the point. Sunny trends too. Supporters applaud her for asking the hard questions and speaking for the audience. Critics accuse her of cornering the guest. Fans slow the clip down, analyze tone, dissect pauses, repost quotes out of context. Boundaries aren't privilege becomes a viral caption. So does accountability isn't performance. Entertainment blogs weigh in. Think pieces follow. Panel discussions replay the exchange frame by frame. Chris doesn't tweet that day. His team releases a brief statement the next morning. Chris appreciates the opportunity for open dialogue and respects differing perspectives. Sunny addresses it on her next appearance, saying, these conversations aren't easy, but they're necessary. Behind the scenes, sources say the exchange wasn't planned. No one expected it to go that far. Producers were tense. Staffers watched from monitors in silence. But they also know something else. People watched. People cared. People argued. And that's what live television does when it's real. Now we want to hear from you. Did Chris Evans have a point about boundaries and visibility? Was Sunny Hostin right to push him on accountability? Or did this conversation cross a line? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.